Welcome to yet another episode of Campfire Talks, the podcast where the homies gather around this imaginary campfire and we talk about things D&D. Today we are talking about the small things. I am your host, it's Rob, aka Pink, aka your Dungeon Master, Pink, aka Klondike to 5 certain people in a certain campaign, but more on that in a future episode. Joined here with the homies. We got Scorch, we got Robert, we got Shadow, we got Sam, and of course, we got the homies that are just muted and enjoying the company as always. We appreciate the company, we appreciate the vibes as well. And, yeah, let's just get right into it. So, I know last time we talked about, the significance of like teamwork in certain functions, certain systems that we were talking about, especially with like blood loss. But now we're talking about the small things for today. You know, let's talk about timing. Let's talk about the significance of sticking towards your character. And when I talk about like sticking to your characters, I think most of us when we play, we always wish we could do something, but we always have to check ourselves in terms of like, but is that something that our character would do, or is that something that I wish we could do? And I'm sure we've been through experiences like that. Like let's just talk about those. Like, you know, it could definitely be a bit of a challenge at times. Like you want to do something cool, but at the same time it's like, but that's not something that my character would do. It's like frick.
No.
One thing that I know I wanted to do, but then I realized I wouldn't have seen the paper is when we were back in the blacksmith shop, and
Yes.
It was someone who ended up getting the pie, and it was a note saying, 18 say less.
Yes.
My character wasn't told about it, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to try and like not think about it.
Yes.
But then you had the little girl counting down, and I was like, oh, when she gets to 18, we have to try and say less. But I couldn't say shit because I have to stick in character.
And I totally get that, because like you want to say something, it's that urge, but it's like, nope, gotta stick to your character. And it's definitely things like that where I think people sometimes are either like they feel like they've let themselves down for just like, because we always go for like the extravagant things. You know, we want to do something cool, we want to do something that's like memorable, but at the same time it's also the discipline in knowing that this is not something that my character would do. Let's not do that, you know. And you know, Robert, I'm sure we had a lot of those times in FSOD.
Oh yeah. Well, just in general with Varys, like yeah, in FSOD, Varys was meant to go one way and wound up going the other, and we've already kind of discussed that.
Yeah.
But even coming back into Emerald Quill with Varys, it's been how long since we actually ran FSOD? Like 2.5 years, 3 years,
2.5
something
years,
like that.
Gonna hit 3 years in September.
Yeah, so trying to remember how I played Varys and the personality that Varys had, and especially with it being so many years later in universe, Varys has grown and evolved, but still trying to remember that personality that Varys had initially to build on it was difficult for me. That's why she's just kind of been in this rage, is kind of all we've seen of her.
Yeah, I was about to say, what personality does she have? Anger? Because that's all I've seen so far.
So the fun part is Varys actually has 4 personalities.
Yeah, because of the different seasons.
That's very fitting.
Because of the Eladrin, yes, exactly. That's how the Eladrin elves are. So based off the season that they are attuned to bases their personality. So you've only seen her summer side. So
is Spring an absolute doll? Like the sweetest, kindest person you'll ever see?
Spring is definitely an adventure.
Are they like pure ADHD chaos or something
Yes,
like that?
yes, that exactly.
Oh boy.
Spring was the ADHD chaos. Spring's
God.
flaw was that they overdrank, so anytime they were anywhere near alcohol, they were just downing it.
Actually, if you think about it, Varys and now revealed as Torel, they would end up sort of getting along, I think, along the like motherly care.
Yeah.
Only Torel currently doesn't have a child to care for because every single child she tries to care for some reason, dies.
Gets exploded by
Mhm.
by the artificer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you don't gotta be doing that.
Exploded by an artificer. Don't know how the orc one died, and then was sacrificed by her own father. Ah.
Yeah. No, but back to the initial question there. Varys also had a situation like that very recently. When you were describing kind of what was in those rooms off the left and right side as we were escaping out that side tunnel, I very distinctly heard you say that there was something in one of the rooms that resembled a wood elf, a small female wood elf.
Yes, there was. It was the potion. It was the potion bottle rooms where it's like giant-sized potion bottles, and in one of the substances was a wood elf being.
Yes, and I don't know if anyone else just didn't pick up on that or didn't notice, like, offhand the significance of that. But I definitely heard it. But since Varys was not looking in the rooms, they were just beelining it out of there.
Yep.
I had the same thing with a lot of the things that were in that room because I had Drugan go with Varys.
Yep.
Right.
So like you and I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, like
with
I
that
heard
situation.
that, and I'm
It
just
was
like
eating at
oh
me. I was
my
like, oh my
God.
god, somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, please, whoever's looking down the left needs to say something to Varys right now, and it didn't happen, and I'm just like,
Yep. Yep.
fuck.
It's one of those like what ifs. Like what if Tunok, like what if Tunok and the others would like just tell you that, but they didn't.
Right?
Yeah.
They literally
like how
kept it to
Tunok-
yourself.
It's like how someone, I can't remember who ended up getting the pieces of porcelain.
That was
Nobody ended up saying anything.
We
And I'm sitting here like, what the heck is going on with the back of my
Yeah,
head?
we called
did
it
say
spare
something.
They were like,
parts.
I don't need spare parts.
Yet. If the artificer dies, those are gonna be pretty handy.
I can mend myself.
Well,
Not well enough.
I think most of the party knows mending.
I don't.
It's gonna make for very interesting. But it just goes back, like, it's the small things. It's the small things that not only we are able to pick up, but it's also the small details we miss out on. And it's because of the fact that we have to stick a character that sometimes it can be such a bittersweet moment where I applaud you on the effort as a character, but when I describe those stuff, there's a part of me that's like, I know you're like on the inside, you want to know those things, but because you walked past, you will never know unless someone brings it up. But another example of like the small things is also obtaining towards certain habits that your characters go into. You know, for instance, when it comes to Volca, one of the things that I do appreciate about what you're doing, Sam, is the fact that you're not only just communicating verbally, but we also have, and for those like, just like for the auditory experience, we also have access to our messages. So let's say like if dialogue is happening, another character can essentially do something, they just have to message, and then I have to look at it, and then it can be determined. And it's like one of those things where like I'm reminded that Volca is a rogue because all of a sudden I just see like a message from Sam be like, hey, can I nick this rifle off of Manchester real quick?
Yeah, we're all talking about things.
Yeah, while we're all talking about things, so like, can I nick this rifle? Like, sure. And you rolled well enough to take the rifle to the point where I have to roleplay it out. So I'm like, well, you know, where's my rifle? Like, but it's things like that that keeps me reminded of exactly like your character, but also building upon the habits. And I think building upon habits for characters is going to make the world more realistic, and also kind of gives a little bit of opportunity for the story to actually go certain ways because of those habits. Is it going to be effective positively? Is it going to be effective negatively? Say if somebody was like chewing on like their nail because they're in anxiety, but because of like the situation that they're in, they chew it so hard they start to bleed, and then they drop blood, and then maybe it gets picked up. Of course, that's an extreme circumstance, but it's habits that characters have that I think I would love to see a bit more. Not saying that that's something that I wish to see, but it's something that I wish to see a bit more, not only in other campaigns, but just visual novels as well, when it comes to like the D&D stuff and the lore that's already like preset in like preset campaigns. Maybe that's just me wanting a little bit more on the smaller things, but that's exactly one of the qualities that I find enjoyable about the experience. That could be very different for all of you, but that's just for me. But I have to, and I'm gonna go back to you, Sim, because your involvement with the team dynamic, and I'm glad that you're here so I could talk about it with you. It is so unique, but it's also with the fact that with the conditions that I've given you, it never fails to make me chuckle that one of the first memories that I remember of your character is you swiping money and cheese off of an unconscious woman at the start of your introduction, only to be met by Varys, who was on a rampage.
This is what the making of true legendary characters is. That's what sets them apart.
I didn't like the options I've had in front of me in that, because it's like I have to steal something. I have to play into the rogue just a tiny bit in the beginning.
And it's a damn good thing you did.
Actually, that's a good question. Volker, what are your thoughts on Torel being made partly of gold?
Well, in that case, it's more along the lines of, if in another time there would be a time and place where Volker would not hesitate to take that, whether he kills you himself or he gets something else to do that.
Yeah.
He would not be afraid to get that, but the way I want to play is, the way I want Volker to come across is an opportunist if the time presents itself. If you were a corpse, he would not hesitate to get that gold and sell it off, but you're not, and he's not going to make that happen. With most of the stuff... Oh, my bad.
I also love how Tunark all of a sudden ended up becoming, like, the one who's been thieving the most, like, taking the artifacts and everything, making everything so
clearing the shelves.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna change over time, but I can't be thieving just yet. We have to build up to that, which is gonna happen much soon. A lot of it's happening soon, I can tell you that much.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be... I can't wait to see what your character does, because it provides... Not only does it provide a unique dynamic, and not only does it provide like a constant reminder of like what your character is and what you are embracing and what you're embodying, but it also delivers great with combat. You know, with sneak attack opportunities and disengaging and dashing, we introduce also a new dynamic in terms of combat. And so with different encounters, it's going to make for a very interesting scenario to be played out, and especially when dealing with, and Scorch, Robert and I talked about, you know, the system of including blood loss or having prolonged injuries or characters experiencing the after effects of combat. It's going to make for a very interesting dynamic once we get into certain boss fights. And speaking of boss fights, you know, we ended up episode 6, ending the campaign with this perfect version, supposedly, of Kiva. We end up with like this perfect version of this porcelain construct. And y'all are just, and I remember after the campaign, y'all are just ready to let Varys take over.
Yeah. Can I just say I hate that you started this topic with speaking of boss fights. Like that's just so foreboding. I hate that.
I mean, we already had 2 so far, and the first one went unsurprisingly well.
Are you thinking the chieftain was a boss?
No.
Which one?
I wasn't even there for that.
Denise wasn't. Okay, so what's the second one?
Would be this one.
I wouldn't say Denise was really a boss fight. I think Denise was a turning point for this current arc. You know.
Yeah, I guess my only reference was he was probably the strongest thing the party knew at the time, with how they were reacting. So.
Yes, like he had a good amount. Yeah. He had a good amount of spells on him. He had a good amount of actions, but because of Storm Sphere, it ended up being a very one-sided battle that eventually ended in his death.
I just say, like, that moment made Storm Sphere so worth. Like, I knew it. Like, it might be something I might have to rotate out, but I'm so glad I picked that. Just
yes.
Choice.
A question did end up coming up.
Yeah.
Now that my core is fixed, granted, I don't know if it comes down to the trauma or my core being fixed. Would I still be a wild mage? A wild sorcerer? Or is it purely off of trauma and my feelings?
No, you wouldn't actually be a wild mage sorcerer at that point.
I do have a comment here. We haven't been rolling wild magic for you at all.
We have here and there.
It certainly hasn't shown up as readily as, like, probably others would assume or would
Is it not every time she casts a spell?
No, it has a chance. So
it has a chance. Yes.
100, and depending on the number I get, I might end up going wild. I might not.
Okay.
That actually brings me to like another point because obviously this arc is these arcs, I should mention, have been some of the most, like, not necessarily vulgar, but certainly the most heart-wrenching in terms of, like, characters. Not for, like, the majority of the party, but for Kiva, for Alvarez, and now for Varys, like, it's definitely one of those things where talking about some of, like, the deeper things besides, like, just conquest and stuff. I've talked about it before, in other relations when we aren't recording, but I can't help but think that this is probably going to be the worst arc that y'all are going to go through before you get into the final arc of this campaign. I'm not kidding when I say that the remainder of the arcs that are going to be for y'all are not going to be as foreboding as this. So the fact that y'all are already starting off as this, and y'all are enjoying it this much, it strikes me as compelling, but thank you for also going through all of this. Like, in terms of, like, the arc, how have y'all... I don't know, what are y'all thinking about the arc changes so far?
I'm finding myself in just, like, talking about it with other people or just thinking about things in general. Like I find myself thinking about specific things I took note of.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, just, like, my thoughts continue to expand on that, and it, a lot of the time makes me concerned for the direction that things are going to go. Like when we ended the session, not last session, but the one before, it was session 5. Was the first session after we killed Denise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thinking about that, like with how that closed, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be so bad. Like going into that, going into session 5, I was really, really, really nervous because of what, like, Alvarez's clothes changing and the voice he's hearing, and I also think I got in my head a little bit that, like, you were choosing not to do anything with the characters that were stuck in Storm Sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And not that it was that they were actually stuck. I thought that you were choosing to do that so that we could, like, so that we would kill Denise and that would happen to Alvarez and that stuff. I thought you were, like, plotting that, and it made me a lot more afraid to go into the session following that. Just so, like what we're going to be encountering.
I want to say something, but I know we're gonna give too much away. But but to the remainder of the homies, like what are your thoughts so far on the arcs?
Emotional, very, very emotional, especially with how deep I get into character.
Mm-hmm.
I end up feeling basically everything that Kiva feels, and it hurts feeling that it's just like, oh god, more trauma, let's go. This
To get a
girl has
punch
been
card at
through
this
a
point.
lot.
Yeah.
Oh, she wants to kill Davis. She also
No,
wants
get
to
a
kill her
trauma punch
creator.
card. So you get rewards for it.
Oh my god. A trauma
With traumatic
punch
events,
card.
you get an uncommon magic item.
I mean, at the rate we're going.
We're getting that rare one.
Get a free coffee after the 5th one. What's up?
If it is okay with you, I would like to keep going with the wild sorcerer, but just have it going along trauma because she ain't gonna recover from that for a good while. And also,
Yeah.
I do enjoy what we've been doing
Okay.
so far with the character, especially with it being wild mage and.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What could have happened to Kiva that was possibly traumatized?
Yeah, like I don't know what you're talking about. I
I
really don't.
have no idea.
No,
What
yeah.
could possibly be traumatic?
Are you
Fucking
serious?
crazy.
I will say,
Trauma for her? Nah.
Oh my god.
I will say on the arc though, like I'm interested because not to say that Valka has been a blank slate, but I don't have as much stakes in what's going on yet, so I'm kind of looking at it as a outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing what happened when I came in and knowing what I do happen to know about the Crimson Fields and how that ties into obviously the name of the arc, I find myself excited to see what you've planned out with this.
It's it's gonna be a doozy. It's gonna be a doozy. When I tell you, once this campaign is done, I am going to 100% like invite you all into the server where I've stored all this information, just so that you can see like the inner machinations of my mind.
Because you have a lot. I know a lot is churning with with what is obviously recently happened and what will happen.
Yeah. Oh, and the thing is that, and most people seem to be surprised when I tell people this, but most of the time my inspiration does not come from too many from like movie or like anime references. All my inspiration comes from listening to horror movie soundtracks.
Fuck yeah.
When I
It
tell
makes
you
sense.
when I tell you that I will listen to 6 hours of like a horror machine playing a certain track on loop, that's what inspires me to write a lot of this stuff for the Emerald Quill. It's the sounds and the noises, and then I turn those into visualizations, and I turn those visualizations to descriptions, to excerpts, and then expanding upon that.
So I got a question for you about that then.
We're screwed.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, what is-
especially after what you ended up doing, Scorch.
What? What did I do?
So
Wasn't
was
it?
one
Was
of
it?
the
It was either you or Alton. It was like telling Pink that it was a little easy or
Oh,
something
I
like
didn't
that.
say that. No, Pig said he was pulling his punches, and I said to
That's it.
go for it in the last
Yeah.
podcast session.
What was
It's
the
not at the same time.
what was the question?
So then, was the Crimson Fields, was that like entire? You were just listening to something,
The
or
Crimson
was that beforehand?
No, like that happened when like I would listen to it while the Crimson Fields was being created. And the thing is that each area, or like I should say each episode, has its own like bits and pieces that are specifically meant for that episode. So for example, in the latest one that we did, episode 6, I basically listened to a piece of glass that's been rubbed against with a violin bow, and the eerie sound that it makes was perfect for me to plan out episode 6. Whereas in episode 2, I basically listened to someone crushing bell peppers in their hands to mimic bones crunching.
So that's where that
Yeah. And it's so
verbal detail
and
came
it's
from. last
really
session.
and it's I'm not gonna lie, it's so awkward talking about like the actual thought process I go through, but that's exactly what I go through. That's a notebook worth of knowledge just listening to sounds that you would hear in horror movies. Speaking
You
of
have-
horror,
Oh, sorry.
Oh god,
I need everyone to pull out their d6 or get
you're
ready.
evil.
And I need you to roll me a d6. And I need you to give me a number. Now, no one can share the same number. So whoever...
Alright, well, I already rolled, I got 6.
Okay, so nobody can claim 6.
4.
Nobody can claim 4.
3.
Okay, nobody can claim 3.
And
Robert?
2.
Alright. I want you all to remember those numbers
Okay.
as we continue on to the next thing of discussion. So one of the things that is very prominent is memorable moments. But memorable moments done at perfect timing. Now, of course, we're not always going to have those moments, because if we do, we would have a highlight reel that would eventually turn into a whole darn campaign. But there are always going to be moments that we will always think back to where no matter how many years has passed, there's always going to be an opportunity for us to mention something and it reminds us of that moment. So, to all of you, have you ever experienced something like that in a campaign? Doesn't have to be this one, if you have been in other ones, but what are some memorable moments where you're like, that's honestly, like, that's unforgettable, and what exactly made that moment? What would make a moment like that unforgettable?
I mean, I've got 2 from the same campaign. So I was a Satyr cleric named Zenny. One of the ones is, it was just goddamn funny. Zenny didn't know a lot of like interactions with people, and she just didn't know what she was going to do with talking to people, interacting with them. She was in a party filled with guys, and for some reason, we were just about to hop onto a ship. Almost all of them started taking off their shirt, and Zenny just sat there, bright red, nose starting to bleed, until FYI, this is all the players. All the players are guys. Almost all of them take their shirt off, and I'm sitting here like, are you fucking kidding me? A couple of took off their shirt just because Zenny was blushing and had a blood nose. She ends up fainting. They end up taking her to the ship. She wakes up in the arms of one of the shirtless guys and passes out again.
That's absolutely hilarious.
And another one on that sort of thing, because I love bringing it up with my partner all the time. So my partner was in the game, and he was one of the players. He ended up becoming one of the big bads. He ended up summoning Tiamats and all this type of stuff. His main plan was to try and kill one player in particular. That's it. He just wanted to kill that one player, and then he was happy.
Mhm.
I ruined that because for the first time with that character, I decided to do divine intervention, and I got it.
Oh my.
So my divine intervention asked for more help, and beings of nature ended up coming in and allowed to absorb elemental damage. Versing Tiamat. Our characters ended up all dying. We got resurrected by Bahamut, and I was able to do divine intervention again, and I got it again.
Oh my goodness. All right.
So we ended up having a bunch of characters from all throughout the campaign come in and help us through the fight. And I keep bringing up with my partner and laughing because I had ruined his plan, and he's still salty about it to this day.
All right. I mean, it's just the fact that just the whole group. I can't stop thinking about the fact that they just all decided to take their shirts off. That was just a very wily scene.
It started off with one of the NPCs named Malachi. He was basically he was a silver fox. He was a bit of an
Gotcha.
older man. He took off his shirt, and then he started blushing, and then like 3 of the other players and one of the NPCs noticed this, and they all like looked at each other smirking. I was like, "Yeah, we're doing this. Take off
This
shirt."
is the plan. We need to follow through with said plan.
Yeah, and then he ended up fainting.
That's fair. I think it's just group, like, it's the fact that you don't need to plan this. We just need to be on the same to be on the same level of understanding to realize this needs to happen.
Share one brain cell for a fraction.
The hive mind.
Let's do it.
I think one of the characters ended up talking to me afterwards, and they were like, "Hey, sorry for making Zenny blush like hell. If Malachi ends up taking his shirt off, my character always ends up planning on taking his shirt off as well, because it's like it's a manly sort of interaction of like, oh, you're taking your shirt off? Alrighty."
That's incredible.
Be like that. Not gonna lie.
Are there any other, like, unforgettable moments that maybe y'all were thinking about, or maybe you're, like, hoping, or maybe what are the elements that you believe would make an unforgettable moment?
You got any Scorch?
I think from, like, because I don't have a lot of experience here either, so I'm really racking my brain here. I've played more D&D, I think, in this campaign than I did in the first campaign. In that both, like, we've had more sessions in this, and I'm far more participating in this than I was in the first. And part of that is because of how I wrote that first character, and, like, going back to, like, trying to be true to the character and stuff. I just really like took myself out of those RP scenarios that I should have been a part of, and that's entirely on me. But I think from that campaign, it was the very first session of us. We were going into combat, and just as a fighter, just going in and slaughtering bandits, and like that being my introduction to, like, okay, I'm killing this person in one go. How do I want to do it? I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I think having that, like, I don't know, I think it was the second person that I killed in that scenario, where I, like, because I'm dual wielding hand axes with this fighter, and I'm dragonborn, so I'm like right in front of him, and I decide to lunge at it, like kind of jump at him, and like bite his whole head, and then cleave his like cleave him into pieces with my axes.
Yeah.
To kill him. And just like being able to do that in, like, my first campaign, and like being given that, like, the freedom and stuff to do those kinds of things, really sticks out for me, and it helped me, I think, get more comfortable in wanting to be creative with things.
I like that. I think it's also in terms of like, I think what also makes an unforgettable moment, and I think you bring up a good, you remind me of this point actually, is the fact that
God.
your level of participation and your level of involvement with wanting to be as much, to be as a to be a very significant part of the experience, because there are times where I've definitely ran a campaign where people, they make really good characters but they aren't into the campaign as they hope
Yeah.
for, and it suffers so much, because especially if it's like IRL and you can visibly see that the person's not into it as much as everyone else,
Right.
it can take that one person and it can suck the energy out of it, no matter how much I can try, or no matter how else like other players are going to be. It could honestly take one person and maybe 5 minutes of just not showing interest, and it can be such a downfall. But because not only do we have like online, so we're not seeing like visuals, and I'm not saying that like, anybody is like showing disinterest, but it's just the fact that online you don't get to see that, so there's less of an opportunity for disinterest to actually be eventually shown. But it's the fact that you can also tell when a person's fully committed, where you can't see their face, but you can hear it from their voice, what they're trying to do, and how they're trying to do it. And it's just that level of commitment, such as you, that really does make great opportunities for there to be unforgettable moments. And I do thank you very much for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to live in the world.
And that's good.
Like, actually, I'm like,
And the fact that, I have the honor of being one of your first like DMs. There's definitely like some expectations I put upon myself that could understandably, that could be argued is a lot higher than what like you should calm down a bit, but like no, like this is one of your first experiences, like let's just do this, let's just jump right in and make it 100%, and to see it being reciprocated amongst all of you is incredible, and it makes for a great environment for unforgettable moments.
Like, I know for my session, like in my game, I understand that, Pink, because I felt like throughout almost all of my players, no offense, Scorch, but it felt like there was no interest in it, and being the first time I was actually being a DM, it brought me down a lot, to a point where I just really, I didn't want to do the campaign anymore. I felt like I was like doing horribly as a DM. I wasn't making it entertaining enough. I wasn't doing anything to bring up the mood or the adventure. And it just got to a point where I felt so down and I just kind of gave up.
I can see where you're coming from, Shadow. The same thing happened in my campaign that I tried to run. I had two characters overpowering the story, similar to what happened in FSOD, because it was the same players.
Yep.
And the other two just kind of not really getting a chance to do much, or
I will be upfront. Since now and then, I've become a more active player, because I think you can agree, even at that point, I was extremely passive whenever you saw me playing.
Yeah, you and Justin both were very passive, but then again, that's because a lot that was going on was being overpowered by the other two. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for that. At that time, I was really good friends with all of you, so them trying to do stupid stuff and funny stuff, and I was just kind of like letting it happen. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, it might put some fun into the campaign, but looking back at it, it just kind of caused more chaos and caused you and Justin to not have as much screen time, as much activity in the campaign. So
I think that really goes into like the impact, because it's just as important to say no as important as it is to
right,
say yes. There is certainly times where you can definitely like you could try to make things work if it's feasible, but then there's times where, going all the way back to the first point, where like no, because is it something within your character's reason? And if it's not, boom, no. There has
right,
to be continuity with it, and that's something that we still struggle as. I don't think that's going to be something that is ever going to go away. I think that's going to be a continued trial for DMs, and seeing if we have the ability to tell the difference between what's actually good to go and what's actually something that's worth taking a look at.
right. Like one of the things that happened in my campaign is one of the other players was a Leonin barbarian, and they had a run-in with a manticore, and the Leonin decided, no, I'm going to talk this down. We don't have to fight this thing. I'll just talk to it. I'm a lion. It's partly a lion. It'll be fine. And I'm just sitting here in my mind like, this, what the fuck is happening? Sure, you can try, and somehow by the roll of dice, uh, he succeeded the DC that I had set for him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck just happened?
But I think it's things like that those are always going to be reminders that we can be years into this game, but there's always going to be opportunities for us to be reminded that we are still at the mercy of making mistakes. And it's just a matter of how we deal with those. Which actually brings me into my final point, and that's the downsides. Because we talk about unforgettable moments, but I think there are times where we use the time that we spend during D&D to also relax. Because as much as we love doing D&D, by the time we end, or moments before we start, we always tend to get reminded about the things we have to go through in real life before we actually start the session. I know for me, in particular, there are definitely times where I am emotionally fatigued, but I still continue on with the sessions because it gives me that boost, and then I feel genuinely good afterwards. But there's definitely going to be times where we don't even have the tolerance in order for us to step away. And I bring up this point because I actually met with a homie that I DM'd them for, and I remember talking to them about a time where they legitimately left the table that we were at, and they never showed up for the remainder of the campaign. And in my mind, I definitely think that it was my fault, and I admitted that to them. And we talked it out, and we were able to figure out some stuff. I was able to find some answers, he was able to find answers too, and we're still good friends. But that conversation reminded me that D&D can actually be very helpful to someone that's going through a bad day. Maybe not necessarily like such a bad day where like we need to be around people, but a day could be so mediocre until we do something like this. And I think it's times like this where I really do appreciate that there are still people that are still invested into the campaigns that we run. It still warms my heart, but at the same time, it's like this is also therapeutic for some people. Even if you aren't a player, like to the people that spectate the campaigns or just like listen about it or talk about it, that's extremely like valuable to all of us, because we get lost in this fantasy world that we create. because not only does it give us a platform to really just be something that we aren't, but it also gives us an opportunity to really just take a break from all of the meh stuff. Does anyone else feel like that, or is that just me, like, speaking to the ether?
No, absolutely. It
Yeah.
also, if you build a character the right way, it also gives you an outlet to different emotions or different things that typically you couldn't express, you couldn't release.
Exactly.
Like Varys, when we went through FSOD, Varys was a great example for that. I mean, she had multiple personalities, so my ADHD energy that at the time I had no way to release. Being in spring let me kind of just release that ADHD energy when Varys had screen time. The summer energy, just the rage, getting the anger out. Like, if you have a character that suits the needs, you can definitely release emotions that are pent up that you couldn't release otherwise in a healthy manner.
Right.
For this, for Kiva or Torel, I do feel like I do have a little bit of an outlet from her. She is because I took care of my little cousins from when they were a baby to like now, and the eldest being like 12. This ends up letting me have that like motherly care of little ones, even if it's only for a short while. It allows me to bring out that like the feeling I have for kids, wanting them to be safe and happy. It allows me to do that. Able to focus on that sort of feeling, and I'm able to give into, I guess, my motherly instincts.
It's very valuable that we utilize this time as an outlet. And even if you aren't using it as an outlet, this is also just a great opportunity for people to just get together and just be around good company. I think at the end of the day, even just being around good company and D&D being a very broad catalyst for us to kind of get together because we share pretty similar levels of interest. Like, that's just, who doesn't want to experience this? You know,
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why I think years from now, I'm still going to be playing D&D. Now, I am gonna want one day to like be a player. Look, I love DMing and stuff, but the series has got to end at some points. That way, I could like be a player for once. You know,
I would
Pink-
love to be in a campaign where you're a player, Pink. Just to
Pink,
see
it's
what
okay.
you're
I'm
creating.
planning of setting up a game with the group here, so you'll be able to be a player.
like if y'all see me as a DM, ooh, wait till you'll see me as a player.
Oh, there's gonna be chaos.
I'm
Especially with the campaign idea I have for you guys. If you want, I can tell you about it, or I can tell you later. It is up to you guys.
I think just in general, I think we're expect a lot more D&D stuff to just come our way. And even if at some point we get burnt out, you can bet your silver dollar we're gonna be coming back to this once the energy
I will be right
flows through.
back. I am still listening though.
All good. But yeah, this is something that I'm gonna continue doing for a long time. And if I'm being honest, like, there's so many different dynamics to still explore. And the fact that Emerald Quill is diving into a lot of the dynamics I'm really hoping for is definitely one of the reasons why I love DMing. But yeah, at some point, y'all gotta see me as a player instead of a DM, so I'm looking forward to all of that. And with that being said, like, we're just about close to wrapping up. But honestly, thank you all so much for being part of the podcast and for talking. I look forward to talking a lot more D&D stuff. But before we close out, we have those numbers.
2, 3, 4, 6.
2, 3, 4, 6. But I'm not going to be the one that's going to be wrapping up the episode. I actually have a little bit of a special guest. Someone that, well, I kind of had to revivify, so that way he's actually alive.
Oh, God. Oh no, not like this. I'll lightning bolt you again.
Could be a couple different people.
Hey, what's up, man? Hey, it's so good to
Yo.
see you all.
It's the one everyone
It's so
expects.
good to see you all. My name is Denise. I don't know. Somebody named Rebecca decided to like use a revivify on me. That was really weird. I thought he was a woman at first by the way he looked, but no, he's a man. Anyways, I'm here now, sitting in this chair. He has something called the chicken nugget by his microphone. That's a little weird. But my name is Denise, and
Hi,
apparently,
Denise. I remember you saying welcome back to me.
well, yeah, welcome back. And I can actually say it this time without really diving into the semantics about all that. Yeah, because
Right, we
everybody
all know
loves
that you end up in the
Denise.
fourth wall.
Everybody loves Denise. All right, so I understand you all have numbers, yeah? You got numbers? Okay.
That number.
Okay, what are these numbers? Let's start off with you. Scooch? Scooch, what number do you got, huh?
I have 8d6 worth of lightning damage.
Lightning damage? No, but we did
I
a
rolled a
rougher
4.
initiative. Oh, you got a 4? You got a wood. You hear that? Scooch got 4. Okay, so for 4. Okay, if you pay me, it's 17 gold, yeah? I will perform at the wedding. Don't know who you're getting married to, but I will perform at your wedding for the low price of 17 gold. Does that sound good, man?
No.
Well, somebody's a party pooper. Okay. Okay, what is next? ShadowDragon. What is your number?
I got a 6, and it's ShadowDragon. Be very afraid.
Oh, Shadukes Dragoon. Okay, Shadukes Dragoon, you rolled a 6. You rolled a 6. Oh, you get to go on the date night with Denise. Oh, okay, for the low price of 69.5 platinum, you can go on a date with me. I will treat you right. I will cook for you. And by cooking for you, I mean I'm gonna have someone else do the cooking. So that way all I can do is look at you while we date. We mingle for a little bit like Pringles, is what the modern people is gonna say. And then we're just gonna go right into sunset like tequila sunrise. Yeah? Yeah.
I sadly don't have any platinum, but how's a hand of gold?
A hand of gold? That sounds... I can work that into it, yeah? I can work that into it, okay? 23 platinum and a gold arm. That sounds
I don't
good.
have any platinum, just a hand.
Oh, just a hand. Oh, look at that. Shadoki Wookie Dragoon is trying to negotiate with me. Oh, I really like you.
Gold.
I really like you already. Okay, I'm gonna go back to you. Okay. Okay. Thaddeus Orisius R.O.B. What the fudge did you roll, huh?
You can just call me Rob, and it's a 2.
Oh, Rube. Okay, you rolled a 2.
Sure.
Rube.
Yeah.
Okay, I like the way I wrote the R's. I go okay, it sounds like automobile. Okay. Alright, so you rolled a 2, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, foot massage. Foot massage from Denise. Okay, I get to touch your foot. Let's see. Do you want the lotion? Do you want the salve?
You are so loud.
Well, okay. Gotta pull Denise out for a little bit. But you still want foot rub, yeah?
How much?
2 copper. It's not too bad.
Damn, that's cheap.
Yeah, I get good 3-hour foot rubs. 3
Yeah.
hours.
And if it's not up to my satisfaction, the foot is in your face. Yes?
No, that's 5 gold if you want to put foot to face. That's a different
No,
service.
no.
No, that's
Two
different
copper
service.
for foot massage. If foot
Okay.
massage is not up to
Okay,
par, foot
okay.
in face for free.
Let's do two copper. Okay, 2 copper.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
2 copper. Okay, and finally, Vach. What did you roll?
I got a 3.
Okay, Vach rolled the 3. Okay. What? I gave you 7 gold. Why am I giving you money? I thought we were... What? Okay, I guess I'm offering you gold. But that kinda sucks. Well,
It sadly does, but we learn.
Okay, Vach. Thank you for taking my gold, I guess. Well, okay, well, as much as I want to stick around, I'm gonna have to go elsewhere, so I will be back in the next episode. You won't know if it's the campaign or the podcast, but I'll be back so that way I can take care of your services. But until then, take care, everybody. He took my sweet tea. He took my sweet tea lemonade.
But is the nugget there?
Good.
Is the nugget there? Is the chicken nugget there?
He took like a quarter bite of a chicken nugget and then tossed it at my window.
Aww.
And then he took my sweet tea lemonade. I think he has a bit of a sweet tooth.
Probably.
Hey,
Alright.
that works. Apparently, I'm going on a date with him.
Well, thank you all for joining in on that podcast. Yeah, I was planning for him to just come on the podcast episode for just chatting, but I guess he wanted to take a bit of my stuff. But yeah, thank you everyone for tuning into this Campfire Talks. Be back with y'all next Saturday with another episode, some new topics, and another special guest who, well, he had an arrow through his head, but he'll be fine to speak. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in, and don't forget, podcast uploads are going to be uploaded every Sunday night, and campaign episodes are going to be released every Monday night, so that way y'all actually got something to listen to. So guess what? On Sunday, you're going to get 2 podcast episode uploads, and on Monday, you're going to get you're actually going to get 2. 5 and 6, with 7 coming this Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.